In this video, we'll be learning about the accurate titration, which consists of two parts, the fast addition and then followed by the drop-by-drop addition. So in the previous video, we have already determined that the trigger reading will actually be 42.70. That will mean that we will do the fast addition all the way until the reading of 42.70, and then we will follow it up by the drop-by-drop addition. So in order to do the fast addition, you must remember that eyes will always be on the burette looking at the trigger reading, which is actually 42.70, and then one hand on the tap all ready to switch off the tap. So once the trigger reading has been reached, right, we will immediately switch the tap off. Now the trigger reading is actually 42.70, but if you look here, the reading is actually 42.20. This is probably a bit excited and then you switch off too early, but that's fine. You will commence the drop by drop. Now, before you commence the drop by drop, it's important for you to swirl the conical flask to mix the solution in. And then you use deionized water to actually wash the walls of the conical flask. So you do this by actually just spraying the walls of the conical flask and then use your other hand to turn the conical flask. So now once you're ready, eyes looking at the tip of the burette to ensure that you add 10 drops of the solution first. Right? After you have added the 10 drops of the solution, switch off the tap and then you use your hand again to swirl the conical flask. So I repeat, eyes looking at the tip of the burette to ensure that you have added 10 drops of solution, and then after you have added the 10 drops of solution, you swirl the conical flask. This process actually requires quite a bit of patience, but this patience is worth it because then you'll be able to get a very accurate reading. Right, so you continue adding 10 drops of solution until you realize, right, that the 10 drops seem to disappear a little bit slower and the solution gets a bit darker. Then you switch to adding 5 drops at a time. Right? Once the drop takes a really long time, you add a few drops, maybe 3 to 1 drop at a time, and you keep adding the drop until you get a permanent color change. Now, you might have actually noticed that sometimes there will be some drops that will be stuck on the wall. So whenever you have noticed that, do wash down the drops at the side with deionized water. Right? So now you can see that the purple color actually takes a bit longer to disappear. That means the endpoint is coming. Now you have to be really careful. Eyes on the tip, add only a drop at a time. So then when you swirl it, you are waiting for a permanent color change. You can see now it is still yellow. So when you add one drop and then when you swirl, you can see that the color suddenly changed to a light pink color, and that's the endpoint. So this is the color of the endpoint, the light pink. And if we added a bit too much, you will actually get this, which is actually purple. Right? So once you're at the endpoint, regardless, just read what's the final reading. And this is my final burette reading, 44.40, which I will record down in my table. And then I'll calculate my volume of solution used for my first accurate reading, which is 21.90. Now we will need to repeat the accurate reading. So we will need to wash the conical flask. Right? So in order to wash the conical flask, again 2 to 3 times with tap water, followed by another 2 to 3 times with deionized water. And then you'll be ready for your next accurate titration.